think Ramy's hoping to get some momentum going into Pittsburgh. People looking at him saying, hey, this guy's a freak. He can still win the Olympia. And that's going to give him a lot of momentum going into the Olympia. But like you said, if people start critiquing him to death, his physique, that could work the opposite for him.
Well, that's what people do. I mean, that's what we do as a bodybuilding community, is we embrace Mr. Olympia, and then we'd love to tear him down.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. And we are back for another installment of Heavy Muscle Radio. Of course, I'm Dave Palumbo, joined by the technician Chris Aceto on this April 24th, 2023 afternoon. And Chris and I are recording this on Sunday morning, because that's when all the kids are still sleeping and everything is quiet in the world, right?
Well, the truth is my kids are awake. And last night I said, Dave, everyone fell asleep early.
Yeah, which was still wasn't that early, but it was.
Yeah,
it was
no, which
early,
is
yeah.
rare anyway. But
my kids, as soon as they know they don't have school the next day, they will
awake.
torture themselves to keep themselves awake as long as possible.
And then they'll be up early the next day.
Yeah, they don't sleep like when I was a kid. If I would be up late, I would sleep late the next day. They don't want to. My son can't wait to get up and turn that iPad on. You know.
Yeah. You should set it up right next to his bed so he can just have the convenience, Dave.
Well, no, if we do that, what he does is he watches it all night and he won't sleep at all. Yeah, so we have to give it to him in the morning, otherwise, because my wife has caught him with the iPad at 6, 5 in the morning. He had on a school night, hasn't slept yet, up all night watching the iPad. She's like, how are you still awake?
Dave, you want to hear one of my confessions so the Department of Health and Human Services doesn't? My son, I got my iPad in 2012. Sean Roden bought it for me, and Derek Farnsworth. And my kids, my oldest, who's now 19, so he must have been 9, he'd sneak downstairs and get it in the 2 in the morning.
I know, they're smart.
I took a hammer and right in front of him, he smashed it.
That's the Charlie Arms method. He told me to do that. I can't get myself to break shit though. My wife thinks I'm a lunatic if I do that, so I can't do that. But yeah, you smashed the whole thing right in front of him.
I took a hammer and I walked in, and he was at the kitchen island with it. I snuck up on him and I took a hammer and ka-ching, 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 ka-ching.
That's the Charlie Arms method. He says you break his most prized possession right in front of him, and he'll never do anything bad again.
Well, I mean, that was just from my gut. I was just okay, I'm not going to deal with this.
You did it right. I'm not as brutal as you, evidently. But yeah. So we have to lock up the iPad at night just to make sure he doesn't.
They'll look for the keys. They'll look for the keys, Dave.
Well, my wife is very good at hiding things, so he hasn't been able to find it. I think she hides it in her room somewhere, so he can't go and find it. But and he knows too, because as soon as he loses something, he's negotiating already. All right, you lost the iPad 2 days. All right, when am I getting it back? On Friday? What time on Friday?
Oh yeah, that's what they do. They negotiate. My parents there was no negotiation.
No, Well, because you know what? Back when we were kids, you can get, you got whacked. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
They arrest you if you do that nowadays. So I'm trying to think of where I want to start. Oh, did you know? I don't know if you knew Donald Trump was in Fort Myers this past weekend.
No, what was he there for? Campaigning. Oh, I know what he's doing.
Yeah, well, there was some kind of I should have gone to this thing. They had some kind of dinner. It was $350 a plate. I really should have gone. If I didn't have kids, I definitely would have gone. Like because the price really wasn't that bad. Like, usually they're $1,000 a plate. I would have paid the $350 for my wife and I just to go see Trump and
you could have won more Species T-shirt and then posted it on your.
Right. Well, Trump. It's funny because Trump was downtown Fort Myers and he went into the downtown pizza place, which I've been to. It's like a pretty popular little place. All the kids who go out, drinking, they'll stop in there and they'll eat pizza. They got like this like famous like white pizza in there. So Trump went in there and he stopped the car. He went into the pizza place. He ordered like 2 pies or whatever, and then he started giving out the pizza to everyone. And people love that stuff. And he was eating pizza with the with just the people in the restaurant. People love that. It's like man of the people, right? They were cheering him.
Blue collar.
He had I was shocked at the support that he had down there. So it was pretty impressive.
He's all he needs to do is beat DeSantis in Florida, and that's it. He's the guaranteed 100% slam dunk nominee, and based on the way it's going, DeSantis is way behind.
Trump's smart, man. He went right to, DeSantis' stronghold, and because for people who don't know, DeSantis is the governor of Florida, who's done some great stuff, by the way. I think I don't talk to DeSantis. I think DeSantis really wants to wait for 4 more years. He's young, you know what I mean. He doesn't. There's no rush. I think he wants just people to know who he is. I don't think he's going to beat Trump. I just think Trump is too popular at this point. But who knows?
Yeah, in a debate, he'd get destroyed by Trump.
You think so?
Oh, because Trump would just like nickname him, give him the Meatball Ron and Ron DeSanctimonious, and he's now Mickey Mouse. You could beat up Mickey Mouse. How can you debate me?
Right. Yeah, Trump is pretty good with the wisecracks. It's like trying to debate Dexter. Dexter would have all the comebacks. You can't win a shit talking contest with Dexter Jackson. You certainly can't win one with Trump.
Trump is like debating Don Rickles, right? Which old time, and who was the original white guy that had.
My social studies teacher in 10th and 11th, 12th grade, I had the same teacher. He was great. He said, you can never beat a presidential candidate who the people would see themselves sitting down and having a beer and pizza with. He told me that this was in the 80s. He told me this. He's right. That's why people loved George Bush. Bush Jr. I'm talking about. Bush Jr. he was a nincompoop, but he was like the kind of guy you felt like, you could have a beer with him at the pub, and that's the whole Trump is like, you can sit down and like have a piece of pizza with him. And that's exactly what did this past weekend. People like that. They think, hey, you know what? I can relate to this guy,
Well, because that's at the end of the day, that's who's voting, right? The people.
Right. But I'm saying when and to be honest with you, I think Trump would be way better than who's in there right now. But when you pick a president, when I pick a doctor or a presidential candidate, I would think I'd want to pick the smartest guy in the room, right? That's going to be the guy who's going to run the country.
You don't want to pick the dumbest guy in the room.
No. But we've had some pretty dumb people as presidents, over the years. So.
And Trump has announced that he's a certifiable genius.
He certified himself. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Besides being able to beat people, he's a certifiable genius. And then if anyone's debating him, like Ron DeSantis, you say, Ron, you rent your house. You don't even own a home, right? Yep.
You would know that. You probably know the address he lives at.
I just know that I think he rents, right? Or he's.
I don't even know.
Rubio. I don't think Marco
anything
Rubio.
Related to real estate. Just ask Chris. He knows it all, especially in Florida. All right, let's talk about. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about. Oh, by the way, Farnsworth. Speaking of Farnsworth, he mentioned him with the buying the iPad for you. He sent me a picture. I guess he's been in Vegas. He went to see Chris Angel, at the new theater. So I think he enjoyed it because he texted me the picture yesterday, and I haven't been to Vegas, so I haven't seen Chris's new show. But in the Planet Hollywood theater, I hear it's really good though.
Did he get to go backstage or?
No, he should have told. If he would have told me he was going, I could have had my Chris's assistant meet him, and he would have definitely pulled him back. He would have gotten him free tickets too. So
yeah, Chris has injuries too, right?
Yeah, like, yeah, I mean, he's, Chris is my age. He's actually a year older than me. He's had some shoulder surgeries and stuff like that. It's amazing that he can still do the stuff he does at his age, because, when I think about what going to the gym and walking around, I'm pretty beat up, you know what I mean? And I'm 55. He's 56, and he's like swinging from like, wires over stages and stuff like that. It's pretty impressive at his age that he's still doing that, That takes a wear and tear on your body. I remember when I went to see him, he does 2 shows in a row, and in between he has a massage therapist there, just massaging him nonstop.
Well, there you go. That's what I said. I thought he had injury. I think he has injuries of some type. Didn't he have maybe I'm getting mixed up with another.
He does have injuries, but not like severe injuries. But he has a nagging shoulder problem that he's been dealing with for years, and he's had some back issues, but. He works through it. He's, that's his profession. That's his job. He's got to do, he does his own, he does physical therapy. He'll do, he works out. He has a really nice gym in his house, I've seen. And so he does the work, he eats the diet, he takes the supplements. He's just, your body takes a beating, doing those type of things. It's a very physical show that he does. And it doesn't matter if you've been doing it nonstop for, 20 years, it takes its toll on your body. I think that's something you have to, recognize. I'll tell you this, a lot of people have been asking me how I've been doing, and I feel good. You can tell my energy levels are pretty good, but man, this sternal area here. So I don't know if it's like more sore now, or if I'm just more of aware of it as like it's healing. It's like, it feels like, like I said, like the worst bone bruise you've ever had. Like, how like it takes like forever for that pain to go away, that achiness.
Your expectation, like immediately, is for intense pain, and then your expectation for 2 weeks after that it should go away, and it's still there. So it's
it was never intense. Aside from the first day or two, it was never intense pain. It was always just this like dull ache. But after a while, you want the dull ache to go away, and it's like, and so I have this theory that like when you're healing, think about it. They cut me like right here, not the whole way, and then they opened it up, and so they probably traumatize those ribs when they separate it, and it's basically held open by clamps for like 4 or 5 hours. So there's got to be some like damage done that's going to heal. But me, I wanted to heal yesterday, and so every time I move around a little too much or whatever, move my arms around too much, I'm like the next day I'm like paying for it. So
it's my favorite dad. I send you the links to on Instagram. It's not. We had to give birth.
Chris got this guy who dresses up as a woman. He's not a trans. He's just a comedian, and he always does these very funny stuff. Let me play one of them for people. Hold on.
I said, Dave, I don't get it, because you have to have young kids to.
Yeah, no one understands us unless they have kids. You're right. Hold on, pull this up. Thank God for Instagram. Nothing's going on in the bodybuilding world, right?
Well, there's a little lull.
Yeah.
But they'll ratchet up. New York Pro, Cal Pro month.
Right. Pittsburgh, guest posing.
Pittsburgh prejudging.
All right, hold on. Let me pull this up here.
That's right.
I'll do the short one, because the short one's pretty funny. Because people could, if you can relate to, if you're married, you can relate to this. All right.
I'll just do it myself then.
Hey, do you mind taking out the trash, please?
Oh, yeah. I'll do that in a minute. You know what? I'll just do it myself then.
Hey, do you mind taking out the trash, please?
Oh, yeah.
Let me give you some advice, guys. Never hesitate when they ask to take the trash out. I happen to be a trash lunatic, Nazi. I take the trash out 40 times a day, because I'm just like, I don't like to have garbage pails that are filled with any kind of garbage. But I'm telling you, if they ask you to take the garbage out, take the garbage out. Take the garbage out. It gets you out of the house too, Chris. Do you ever notice that?
What's that?
It gets you out of the house when you're taking the garbage out too.
Yeah.
I have a long driveway, so I can take my time. It's like I get like a little reprieve from everything.
From the chaos of the kids.
From the chaos of the kids, that's right. Because you know what happens? My kids on the weekend, I don't know about yours, they stay up late, and a lot of times, like today, Saturday, they had soccer, so they never really got to take a nap, the young ones. So by like 11 o'clock at night, they're completely nuts, like
Yeah,
irrational, crying, getting hurt, hurting each other because they're just so tired that they need to go to sleep.
crazy.
Yeah. My daughter split her lip open like 4 times in a row. And it wasn't because of her anything she did. It was because the other kids were banging into the lip over and over again.
They run around and crash into each other.
Oh my God, they did. You know what it is? They're all in gymnastics. They all play soccer and they're all in gymnastics. And they're always doing stunts, they're off the couch, they have a bean bag there. They're like doing flips and stuff that they shouldn't be doing. Because my wife was a gymnast. So she's all about safety, which is smart, but they don't care. They have no safety awareness whatsoever. They just launch their bodies into the air and just hope for the best, that kind of thing.
You need chairs everywhere.
That's right. My son, when he was really small, jumped off the couch, but had no safety and just landed on his head. He didn't even put his hands out. He was. I don't even know what he was doing up there. We don't even know how he got up there, to be honest with you. And we ran to the emergency room, and he had a big lump on his head. And should we do an CT scan? Oh, we don't want to. They don't want to expose them to radiation. And they put us in a room for like 3 hours with ice, and he calmed down, and that was it. Went home. He still has the lump on his head. That's he still has the bump there from 8 years or whatever it was, 5 years, 6 years ago. But the kids do crazy stuff. Luckily, they heal really well, though. They're good healers. All right, I talked about Derek. I showed you a clip. Oh. Keon Pearson, guest posing. Let's pull that up. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I did see that actually.
Keon is interesting because he is. Let me pull this up here. He's got so much more that getting ding to that music.
He's got the Wheeler little leg kick on that front leg. That's
yeah. Well, Flex was working with him for a while, so I think he got a lot of his posing from Flex.
Yeah. Got a little. He's got it's all Wheeler. I was gonna say it's Dexter, but Dexter stole a lot of Wheeler stuff with those.
Yeah, Flex did his diet for one of the shows he did early on in his amateur career, and so I think Flex taught him all the poses and everything like that. He obviously was a good student.
Oh, the way he moves the arms and stuff. He's very impressive. Round. He was really at the Olympia this year. It's strange. I think he might have been the tail end to the right of the first call out of like 7 or 8, and then
I had him higher than he placed, to be honest with you.
And he fell from there, which was kind of a surprise because he was in his best condition, and I thought the condition was actually good.
Yeah.
Way bigger than he's been. So, just that combination of being bigger than you've been and in your best condition, a lot of times that carries you a lot higher.
Yeah.
Because the judging panel and the judging panels, a lot of times judges would be like, okay, this is his best, and they want to see you compared with, the top 3 or top 4, and that never really panned out for him.
I think he's the perfect 212 Olympia champ. I'll tell you why. Because he's so short that he would have a lot of problems in the open division. Like, he's not a guy who could just cross into the open division. He has the mass and everything like that, but I think his height would hurt him. But I think in 212, he is perfect for that division. If you look at him, he doesn't have any weaknesses. He has 0 weakness. The only thing that he potentially has a weakness with is maybe not bringing in the conditioning, the dryness that he needs to bring in. But if he nails his conditioning on stage, I don't think anyone in that 212 division can beat him. I don't think Clarita can beat him, to be honest with you, because I think he's more complete. What do you think about that statement?
He's I think he's wider and naturally rounder, if that makes sense. Naturally rounder than Sean, because Sean is not wide, but he's got a lot of big caps. Caps on the delt, caps on the triceps. He'd be legit competition for him for sure.
Yeah, because when I see Clarita, I say, you know what, this guy can hold another 15 pounds on his physique. I know it sounds insane because but he can. He's got like, he doesn't have short limbs like Keon does. Keon, you look at him and it's like there's not a gap in his physique anywhere. It's like there's no place to put any more muscle anywhere. Like, matter of fact, I think if he gets bigger, it might be a detriment to him at this point. He just needs to be shredded, like dry, grainy, nasty, with separation everywhere, because he's got that kind of physique that when he pulls his lats back, his lower lats will be striated. Yeah. He's got the quads, separation. If he comes in like Kai Green conditioning, I don't think that Sean can take him out. And it's not that Sean's got a bad physique. Sean's got an awesome physique. I love his physique, but I think that Keon is more complete. He doesn't have any gaps in his physique.
Well, I mean, it's saying a lot. I mean, it is, but I would agree with everything that you said. It's just that, at this point too, as good a condition as Keon was in last year, he's up against, Sean's in even that much better.
Nutty condition, yeah. So.
I mean, Keon is impressive.
Yeah, I think so. I remember when Keon was sending me pictures before I don't even know if he ever competed at a show. He was sending me pictures. He was like natural. And I guess he was in classic physique, or he was going to go into classic physique. And I'm like, I was so impressed with how he looked. He actually, smaller, looked more aesthetic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because, Dave, you're 100% right. He was super aesthetic when he was small. I think his legs, his upper body's blown up more than the legs are blown up. That's not to say his legs, but there was more balance there before.
What a beautiful physique he had. But I understand the idea that you need to put more muscle on if you want to be competitive at the highest level. So he had to do what he did. But I mean, like I said, this guy naturally was unbelievable. And so when you have that kind of base to build on, that's a hard thing to beat. It's like Roden, naturally was amazing. Coleman was amazing, natural. Kai, you're talking about, just a genetically blessed physique. And now you add a little bit of anabolic on top of that, and it's like, takes him to the next level. It's just a matter of him finding out how to peak his body to what the judges want to see. I think that's where he's at now.
Who was the guy from New Jersey who looked like the statue? It was like 5'1".
Oh, Marvin Ward. He was great too.
Marvin Ward would be a dangerous 212 guy.
Oh my God, he would be. He was placing in the open. Remember?
How would he do?
He would be right up there, I think too. I think Marvin Ward's problem was he had too much drama in his life. He was just too inconsistent. You remember the year? I think that I helped him. He did the Night of Champions. I think he was like 5th, or it was New York Pro, I think it was called at the time. And he was like 5th, and we were screaming for him. He was so much smaller than everyone else, but he looked like Haney up there. He looked like a little Lee Haney. That was his physique.
He reminded me of Keon when Keon was small, but perfect proportions.
And Marvin was natural for many years too. Remember, he won the Team Universe.
He was.
But there's a lot of gifted guys out there. When you start seeing these guys, you start saying, "Man, why was I even competing with these guys?" It was just like the genetics on some of these guys are just unbelievable. Keon's got God-given genetics. I really think if he can put it all together and really bring in the conditioning level that he needs, he's going to be very, very difficult to beat.
Well, he's close. Based on last year.
He's improving every year, which is important. That's what bodybuilding is about.
He's getting bigger, that's for sure. And with that size, there's actually the conditioning is actually better. A lot of times people put on size, but the condition stays the same. He's actually getting better. Condition.
Yeah, I agree. I think his body's getting more mature too. He's getting more muscle maturity. Yeah. I wanted to bring up this Dylan Mulvaney story. Okay, I've talked about it on other shows, but I think it's relevant just because from a marketing perspective. So Bud Light, for those of you who don't know the story, Bud Light, this new vice president, this woman decided that she wanted Bud Light to be more inclusive, and which I don't know why she thought that, because let's face it, who drinks Bud Light? Red-blooded American men, right? That's the demographic. And they decided they did some kind of deal with this Dylan Mulvaney, who's a man who's transgender, who has a crazy following on Instagram, I guess like 10 million followers or something like that. And they decide to put her on the beer can, and they do this whole ad campaign. And, you know, Kid Rock, you know, takes a case of Bud Light and blasts it with his fucking machine guns. People are outraged. And eventually, you know, they actually got rid of the vice president woman who came up with this brilliant idea. They moved her someplace else. And now this Dylan Mulvaney hasn't posted on Instagram for like 2 or 16 days or something like that, because Bud Light is completely embarrassed. And now Bud Light's putting out like new ads with like the old Clydesdale horse, you know, running in the field, Chris. And it just goes to show you in marketing, like, you know, you wouldn't put Dylan Mulvaney on a tub of protein, you know what I mean, in bodybuilding, because she's not a bodybuilder. And bodybuilders buy tubs of protein, and people who work out. Dylan Mulvaney, just because she has 10 million followers, she has no muscle on her body. Just like Dylan Mulvaney doesn't drink Bud Light. We know that. Okay. She's not drinking this. She's not pounding cases of Bud Light on the weekends. All right. So people cannot relate to that. It goes back to the old Trump thing. You feel like you can sit down and have a beer and a piece of pizza with Trump because Trump eats pizza and drinks beer. Okay. Why Bud Light decided to do this is ridiculous. And this is just something that I think is important to mention, Chris, because people ask me about marketing and who to hire and how to get a job, you know, working for a supplement company. I say, you know what? Bodybuilding supplement companies don't hire people just because of their Instagram followings. Now, that, granted, it does help. If you're a bodybuilder and have a good following, yeah, I'm going to hire you. But I'm not going to hire just anyone. I'm not going to hire the girl who sticks her ass out in the air and has 10 million followers because she's got 10 million people, because those people are not buyers of nutritional supplements. Just like Dylan Mulvaney's 10 million followers are not beer drinkers. And it's important to understand in today's day and age that if you want to be endorsed by someone or you want to get sponsorship by someone, go to the people, go to the niche audience that you appeal to. If you're a bodybuilder and you're hardcore, then you go to the supplement company that's hardcore and say, hey, look, I got this many followers. I love your products. I want to promote them. And it's much more organic, don't you think? And it's much more believable if someone who's a bodybuilder and freaky takes your nutritional supplements than some transgender person who has 10 times the followers as that person.
Well, one, Trump doesn't drink, and then two, we don't know if that his name Dylan
Mulvaney, yeah.
Dylan Mulvaney does or does not drink Bud Light, but just
come on.
You know,
she weighs 18 pounds, you know.
Well, I mean, people can just drink and not eat at the same time.
They hired her because of her social media following, not because of anything else.
I think I think the takeaway is the backlash.
Well, the people are outraged because people don't, you know, that's not, you know, who they want representing their look, I would be insulted if there was a product that I used and they got someone who didn't represent that product and I knew didn't use the product, you know, as a consumer, I'm saying, you know.
Well, I guess the litmus test, Dave, would be you have a large, quote, clientele, tons of people buy Species Nutrition, and they're for bodybuilders. And if you paid Dylan Mulvaney to be on, you know, Testralize or Fiberlize or Isolyze, you know, what would your core buyers think of you?
They think I was an idiot. Now, if I got Matt Kroc, who's now Janae Marie Kroc, who decided that, you know, she was going to, you know, transition, she's jacked out of her mind. If I put her on, if I used her in an ad, people would be like, okay, she works out. She's hardcore. She was when she was a man. She is when she's a woman now. And that's fine, I think. But you have to stick to your core crowd. I don't know where. I just don't know where Bud Light came from on this. They got to be. They must have been nuts.
I don't agree with you, Dave. I think you'd get equal backlash.
No, I don't think people care about transgender. I think they care about the fact that they're using someone just for the sake of using them, and the person doesn't really represent the brand and doesn't use the brand.
That goes for, I mean, people endorse cars that they don't drive. People endorse products that they never ever use all the time.
Different. I think it's a different.
I mean,
different
Shaq doesn't use all 150 products that he endorses.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does, Chris.
He's in hiding. He's in hiding. You see that?
Why? Why is he hiding? Why is Shaq in hiding?
They're trying to serve him and Tom Brady, and other people who endorsed the crypto exchange. The guy who had the Ponzi scheme.
Oh, really?
And Sam Fried or whatever his name is, and they're trying to say that they're just trying to sue him.
You know how many followers Shaq has on Instagram?
Oh my goodness, how many?
30 million.
Without trying.
Yeah. Now, if Bud Light hired Shaq, who, like you said, already endorses 400 products, now you're okay, right?
Shaq is the modern day George Foreman pitchman.
Yeah, he 100%. I think he's way more successful than
every
Foreman
time you
too.
turn on a commercial, if you go into Staples, if you go into Best Buy, everywhere you go.
Because everyone loves Shaq. He's a very likable guy. And Shaq's been coming to all into bodybuilding too. He works. Rock Shabazz is his trainer, and so Rock brings him to all these bodybuilding shows, and he's always posing now. I guess Shaq wanted to get back into good shape and everything like that. But I watched a Shaquille O'Neal documentary. I'm trying to figure out what channel it is so I can tell you, because I know you like to watch all those sports documentaries. It was a whole thing about Shaq. It was like 4 episodes. It was like long. What a great job they did on this thing. It's basically Shaq sitting in this big like king's throne, and they just it must have been like 3 days of them interviewing him, and he tells his whole his career, where he came from. He was terrible at basketball when he first started. He was just a big kid. They thought he was like 25 years old when he was 13 because he was so tall. Because he was so tall. He couldn't even make the team. He was stationed in, I think, Germany or something like that, because his father was in the military, and he couldn't make the basketball team there. But the coach was like, this kid's going to be unbelievable at some point, if he keeps playing the game. And it's funny how like a lot of future stars. I think Michael Jordan couldn't make his basketball team one year too.
I think it's
in high school, right? Freshman year or something like that. Which goes to show you that a lot of these guys, it's about practice. You might have the talent, you might have the genetics to be great at something, but if you don't apply yourself, and if you don't give 100% to that sport, you're never going to be great.
See, Dave, you thought you were back when you were training. That you started out by saying, after seeing Keon's genetics, why was I even bothering? But then you thought I turned into like a Shaq. Right? You never know.
I always said if you work hard, you can achieve anything. So I think that you never know what you can achieve until you actually do it, And then when you get to 300 pounds, like I did, and you go to Kevin Levroni's house and see him, you realize that you're probably never going to beat this guy.
Well, the interesting thing, Dave, is when you're 300, you can go to Levroni's house and you say, "What do you weigh?" And you're like 300. He says 242, and you say, "You look like 340," right? Because a lot of times it's the way it's all put together.
There's a genetic component to every not just bodybuilding, every sport, where some people have talents for that sport. They did at the Cooper Clinic, where they do aerobics testing. They tested Lance Armstrong, and they said that in the history of all the people that they've tested, no one can buffer lactic acid better than Lance Armstrong. Meaning that when lactic acid builds up in the muscle and you feel the burning sensation, his body can take away that burning sensation better than anyone, because it can buffer that acid burn caused by the lactic acid. Which means that when you're biking up a hill, up a mountain into Tour de France, and everyone else's legs are like burning on fire, his don't hurt. That's why he's such a great cyclist, because he genetically buffers lactic acid better than other people. He's got a mutation for it. They don't know why.
So genetics, was just Richard Williams clairvoyant? Like Venus Williams, and what's the sister's name? The Williams sisters.
Oh, the Williams sisters, yeah.
They had never played. He had never played tennis. They had never played tennis.
Nope.
You know, he took them out on the court the first day and announced to everyone within an earshot, these are going to be the two greatest tennis players in the history of tennis. So clairvoyant, or was it goes back to work or genetics, or both? It's just bizarre. The whole idea.
I watched that documentary on the Venus sisters.
You're a documentary specialist, Dave, because you told me about the Nolan Ryan one.
I love him. Oh the Nolan Ryan one on Netflix is amazing. You got to watch that. But you will love it. You'll love it. Anyway, I watched the Venus Williams one, and you know what? I'll tell you, those girls worked their butts off. I don't care. You know, I don't know if they would have been as good if they didn't work that hard. I think they genetically had really good physiques. They probably would have been great bodybuilders too. They had a lot of muscle on them. These two girls. And, you know, he just turned them into tennis machines. And maybe more people would be great at tennis if they did what those went through. But you know what? I think in today's day and age, they would probably classify what Richard Williams did to his daughters as child abuse, you know, even though they loved hanging out with daddy. I mean, they were playing tennis, like 6 hours a day. He had them doing all kinds of crazy drills, running around the tennis court. And they were doing it in the middle of the projects. They weren't doing it at like, you know, a country club tennis place. So hard work. It's all about hard work. You gotta work, man. And on anything you do, whether it's bodybuilding or, you know, starting a nutrition company or, you know, doing what we do, reporting on bodybuilding, RX Muscle. It's got to be a labor of love, because it's got to be done every single day and nonstop. That's what makes you great at what you do. But there are people who have genetic gifts that when you combine that with the work ethic, they're unstoppable. You know, think Ronnie Coleman in bodybuilding. I mean, this guy had the genetic potential to be the greatest of all time. But if he didn't have the work ethic, he never would have been the greatest of all time. And he became the greatest of all time because of the work ethic that he applied. So he had both genetics and work ethic. And that's a hard combination to beat. You know, a lot of guys have one or the other, or I think Flex Wheeler had the genetics to go all the way too. And I think his work ethic was good, but not great. You know, I think he had some slip-ups.
You know, because people always throw work ethic, you know, around I think Flex had, you know, the work ethic for sure.
Just maybe not the ability to suffer. I think that's what his problem.
I mean, it might have been just, you know, I don't mean this in a negative way, but mental clarity on end games, what the goal is, clarity on short-term goals. You know, I think he would agree that, you know, preparing for shows was a combination of tunnel vision and stressors. You know, and stressors can interfere with where you're going down that tunnel. Whereas like Coleman is just like, I'm going straight down the tunnel. You know, if the wheels fall off and the tunnel collapses on me, it's still a good day.
And Jay was like that too. I'm sure Jay achieved way more with his physique than people thought ever possible because of his head, because of his mindset, you know.
No, I mean, people expected Jay to be a good pro, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, win Tampa type shows.
Yep.
Nobody expected him to be where, you know, he'll be the first to tell you that as well, you know, that people didn't expect, you know, him to accomplish what he accomplished. And I've told the story because he's told it to me, is I think the foundation from where he got was that time when he was digging ditches and he was a little kid and it was pouring rain out. Him and his brother digging a foundation in the like fall or spring when it was like a cold rain and they were working really hard. Yeah. And he told his father, I want to get out of the ditch. He said, and his father said, keep digging. He said, Dad, I'm a little kid. He said, keep working. It's, you know what I mean? There's points like in people's lives, inflection points. You know that
when you think about it, I can go back to the ditch, or I can go into the gym and give 100% every single day. The gym becomes a lot more appealing, you know, of an option, you know.
Yeah, of course, but the foundation is, you know, laid.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It was laid. It was laid. Richard Williams said it for his kids when he made them work 6 hours a day in tennis, and you know, Jay wasn't doing bodybuilding, but his father was putting him through rigorous work, and
Yeah, and the kid has to want to do it too, because the Williams sisters wanted to do it. They weren't like coerced. They weren't threatened. There was no there was none of that going on. They really truly enjoyed the time they spent with the father, and they wanted to be the best tennis players in the world. So they did it. Now there's other instances. I don't know if you ever saw the documentary called RoboCop.
No.
RoboCop. I mean Robo Quarterback. It was about
Todd
Marinovich.
Yes.
Todd Marinovich, his father wanted to turn him into the perfect quarterback, which he did. The kid was unbelievable. He was unstoppable in high school and in college. Got drafted, at the pros. And when he went to college, he kind of discovered drugs, and he got in and became like a functional drug addict essentially. And he realized he never really loved football. He loved the fact that his father loved football, and he wanted to impress his father. And the dream was always that he was going to beat the New York Giants because that was their whole thing. The shtick. They got to beat the Giants. And I guess one of his first couple of games he played as a pro, he beat the New York Giants. And he said, once I did that, I was done. Mentally, I was checked out. I didn't want to play football anymore. And because he really didn't want it. He did it for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, it wasn't his passion.
Yeah.
It wasn't his passion at the end of the day. Otherwise, he'd be stick with it.
And, so that's why it's a tough balancing act. My father always told me, he goes, I didn't push you towards sports, because I didn't want you to hate me like later in life, which I respected in one sense. And in another sense, I'm like, I could have been way better if you would have pushed me. But, it's hard. It's hard to step away. I mean, I watched the kids' soccer games. Did I tell you I get in trouble?
No, for cheering too loud?
No, because my daughter's 5 years old. She plays on the 7-year-old team. And because for scheduling purposes, because my son's 7 and it's where they have the games the same time. We don't have to go to the field 2 different days, 5 different days a week. And so they weren't the coach. There's really no coach. Some mother just volunteered. She doesn't know what she's doing. But so for some reason, my daughter wasn't playing. Like my daughter would be in for like 3 minutes and then they take her out. And, and I understand they have to sub, but she was getting disproportionate playing time. If you're only in there for a few minutes, you can't really get into the flow of the game or anything like that. So I went and I said to her, I said, I said, is my daughter, because sometimes, kids don't want to play. They're like, oh, can you take me out? I'm tired. My son used to do that when he first started. I'm like, is my daughter telling you to take her out? She's like, no. I said, and I asked my daughter, I said, all right, are you going out of the game because you're tired? No, I want to play. I said, well, how come, I said, my daughter I'm timing it. She's only in for like 2 minutes at a time. She's like, no, they get equal playing time. I'm like, obvious. She's like, I timed it. I said, well, your watch is not working. I said, because I timed it. I said, so of course she puts my daughter into the game, back in the game. My daughter scores a goal, the only goal, which is ironic because it kind of gave me vindication. So the next day I get an email from the soccer organization saying that, you can't confront the coaches in the middle of the game.
Intimidation.
You would think I threatened the lady's life or something like that. All I did was challenge the fact that she wasn't in the game enough. And so I wrote the guy back. I said, look, I gave him the whole scenario. I told him exactly what was going on. I said, look, I apologize because you know what? I don't want to start trouble for my kids. You know what I mean? And I didn't do it maliciously. I wasn't like trying to be a pain in the ass.
They don't, if you don't issue the apology, they're going to target your daughter, but go ahead.
Right. So I apologize. And I reminded them that I've been supporting the soccer league for the past 4 years with dollars and cents because I sponsored the uniforms and stuff like that for Species Nutrition. I just, threw that little reminder. So he's like, oh, no worries. We're good. I said, look, I would have coached the team myself, except I had open heart surgery. I said, that's why
Dave's got the money play, the sympathy play, the apology.
Yeah. So everything was cool after that. And my daughter's been playing, getting her equal playing time ever since then. But sometimes you have to open your mouth up, but I, sometimes my son will tell me, stop, you're yelling too much or something like that, And my son actually, at first I thought he was never going to get into soccer. My wife's like, he just doesn't like the game. I'm like, no, I think he's just not comfortable. Now he thinks he's a superstar. He loves soccer now because he's good at it,
Yeah.
So, but It's crazy. Kids, parents in sports, it's very hard to sometimes back away because you it's like you're out there with your kid almost. You can feel them. I'm sure
there's a balance, and God forbid that this day and age they just want kids to like enjoy it. You have a competitive streak, so besides your daughter not being able to play, you want to see her play and win. God forbid, and right.
Yeah.
Dave, the only mistake you would have been able to make in that letter had that your daughter's team won.
Yeah.
Emphasize that. By the way, we did win, and my daughter.
I know. I did mention. I said, and ironically, she did kick the only goal of the game. I said.
Some people will be offended
at 5 years old. At 5 years old, So
some people will be offended by that because it's not the goal of sports this day and age. It's just socializing.
I was fighting for equal playing time. I wasn't saying my daughter's the best one on the team, which she is, obviously, and she should be playing more than the other girls. That would have come off as arrogant. You know what I mean? I was just asking for equal playing time for her. I know she's the youngest kid on the team.
The mom may be watching you and may use this as evidence to cancel your YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Speaking of canceling YouTubes, I'm not the biggest Nick Trigili fan just because I think that a lot of the stuff he does is pretty negative on his Bodybuilding and BS YouTube channel. But I do defend his right to be able to go out there and say whatever he wants because we're supposed to have free speech. So they took away his YouTube channel for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason was. They said he violated the community guidelines, which could be anything, The problem here's the problem, Chris. When you criticize, when your channel is based on criticizing other people nonstop, every video you do, eventually you're going to piss off the wrong person. And you might piss off someone who has a connections high up. When someone criticizes me, I could care less. I just, ignore it. But a lot of people take things personally. Those people. I don't have to mention their names on here. And the people in our industry who don't like to be criticized and who go crazy over it.
Well, most people don't like criticism. Myself included. I into it, but it'd be nice to be praised 24 hours a day as opposed to criticized. But go ahead.
Right. Yeah, and some of his stuff is malicious. So and could hurt people's businesses, and so people complain. People will report you. Believe me, it happens all the time. So I don't know why he's so shocked that they took away his channel. Because YouTube will succumb to the woke world we live in 2 seconds. If someone says that I'm being discriminated against because of this guy and he's hurting my business, YouTube they don't care. They'll take the channel down. They don't need his channel up there. The take-home message.
Yeah.
What? The take-home message on this really is, and really the point I want to make is not whether his channel, I don't think anyone's channel should be removed ever. So I feel for him in that sense, even though, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan because of some of the nasty shit he said. But I'll say this: you can't put all your eggs in one basket. And I've said this, Chris. I say this all the time. You say it too. You got to have multiple streams of income. Nick's had all his eggs in that one basket pretty much, and that's where his income was coming from. And I'm sure he was making a good amount of money because he had a lot of hits on his videos. And YouTube took it away. And you know what? You can't be beholden to just one person depending on their mood, because YouTube can go away tomorrow. And you know what? A lot of people who make a lot of money from YouTube will be in big trouble if that's the case. So you have to diversify. You have to have other streams of income. You have to have other platforms that you're on, if that's what you do social media wise, so that if something goes wrong on one, you got the other one. Mm-hmm. I know guys who make a ton of money on Facebook. I don't even know if people know you can make money on Facebook. I didn't know you can make money on Facebook, but I know people who stream to Facebook and they don't stream to YouTube, and they make a very good salary from Facebook. So it's not just YouTube, that you can do stuff on. And so, but the problem is, Chris, that when you're a negative channel where you're criticizing, a lot of people, okay, you're much more vulnerable to losing your channel or being, reprimanded by YouTube than if you're out there and you're an information channel. We're pretty much an information channel. Yeah, we get in these little spats with people, but pretty much on a regular basis, you and I and whatever else we do on RX Muscle is information and entertainment. That's what I call it. And so very rarely do you offend people, when you're doing information and entertainment,
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I just, of all the gazillion uh, YouTube stations out there with people spewing insane amounts of nonsense, negativeness, racist stuff,
Yeah.
anti everything stuff. The idea that you're going to pull someone's station down because he said you were fat at prejudging,
I don't think that's what it is. I think that there's been some attacks on people's businesses. That look, I'm speculating. I have no idea why they're taking this channel down. I can't even fathom it. He thinks, his whole shtick is that I don't curse anymore. I follow their regulations. It has nothing to do with cursing. Or believe me, Lee Priest curses more on our TV show, and we're fine. It's not the cursing. It's not adhering to their rules. It's someone got pissed off by something he said and reported him, and maybe they had a better connection to reporting someone than the average person does, and they took him down. So, or maybe they threatened a lawsuit. You never know.
If Species Business or Jay Cutler's business can't withstand the daily criticism from Chris Aceto saying, Jay's products are terrible. Right. He has made in a bathtub somewhere. That's what I hear. Or Dave Palumbo's products really are a fraud. There's not 50 grams of protein. There's 2 grams of protein in 2 scoops of. If your business can't survive criticism, maybe you don't really have a strong business.
Well, you know what? If your business is getting sustained attacks from someone who has a very large following and it's not true, and you could prove to YouTube it's not true, maybe that might be a problem. I don't know. Like I said, I guarantee you it has nothing to do with, it's probably some personal attack he did on someone that knew someone in YouTube and had a station taken down. Look, we know a lot of industry, informants.
He didn't attack Sean Ray, did he?
That's a good question. Yeah. That's something I could see. I don't think Sean, to be honest with you, I don't think Sean gives a shit about, people talk about him all the time, but
gives an enormous amount. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's probably the takeaway of this show. I think he gives way too much of what people think of him. The fact that he always says, "Oh, I don't really care."
Yeah.
If you didn't care, you wouldn't even mention it.
I think it's some industry people who have businesses that maybe he's attacked in the past. And so there's a lot of malicious people out there, Chris, and, they don't want to see people succeed. And I guess Nick was making money and being successful, whether it was a negative successful or not, it doesn't matter. Yeah. He was making money, and people felt like, you know what, this guy's not going to make money off of my back, and hurt my business. And it's the only thing I could possibly think of, because you know what? YouTube doesn't give a crap what people talk about. Look at TMZ. I mean, there's tons of
I
think he pissed off the wrong person. That's what I think.
And that person called the guy from Google who owns YouTube, whatever his name is, who just
maybe they threatened a lawsuit or something like that against Google. Who knows? And maybe they had an actual, look, if you had an Alan Dershowitz write up a little, proposal about the lawsuit that we're going to be launching against you, sometimes that stuff scares, these big companies, and they don't want the bad publicity. So they'll succumb and they'll take the channel down, happens all the time. He's lost channels before, by the way. He lost his YouTube channel before. So obviously there's something about, they watch him. Look, every time I do a Lee Priest video, anytime I interview Lee, the video goes into review, okay, automatically when his name is in there. Usually they approve it for monetization. Sometimes they don't if he's a little out of control. I don't care. I told Lee he can say whatever he wants on the show. I don't censor him at all. But we've never been got a strike or canceled because of Lee. Nick has had problems in the past. Like I said, he lost a channel. So when you lose a channel and then you start a new one, they're probably scrutinizing everything you do at that point. And it's Tony Hughes has lost probably 5 channels, because of all the crazy stuff he talks about on there. But you never know. But like the point I'm making is that don't put all your eggs in one basket. You have to have other streams of income, because you can't go from making a ton of money to nothing because you're based on one, company. It's like working for like a Fortune 500 company. They're paying you $1 million a year and then they fire you, and now you got nothing.
Yeah, it's great advice. It's just really hard to do.
It's not hard to do. You have streams of income. Look, what happened? I'm going to give you a good example. When COVID hit, okay, and you couldn't rent out all your Airbnbs, and you were having problems. You had bodybuilding. You were still coaching people. That was paying a lot of your bills, wasn't it?
I have savings. I mean, I don't.
Right, but I'm just saying you also had that as a fallback. You had another stream of income still to come in.
Yeah. I mean, but that was frankly never planned. So it's the flip side of that is if you're selling, you're a car dealership and you're doing really well as a car dealership, and you've been doing it for even a used car,
right.
lot, and you've been doing it for 7 years. You don't say, God, I'm doing really well selling these cars. Maybe I should diversify into boats. So maybe I should have a bakery.
No, but the difference is, Chris, if they shut your dealership down because you're on a condemned nuclear fallout piece of land, okay, you still have all the cars and you still have the clientele. You can move it to another location and still sell cars because you're selling cars. It doesn't matter what location you're selling from. The problem with YouTube is that if you're only in one spot and then that spot blows up, you got to be able to move someplace else. In other words, with the same content you're doing, and still be able to monetize that content.
Can he move to Facebook?
Well, I know he's on Rumble. I think he's on Rumble. He said he's got a Rumble account. He had to actually take his Rumble account down because you can't have YouTube and Rumble. You can't put the same videos on both. They don't let you cross promote that. But I mean, and I don't know what Rumble pays, but it's YouTube is the most popular right now, and everyone wants to be on there. But you can make money on Instagram and on Facebook too if you monetize. And so, yeah, he'll be fine. He'll survive, I'm sure. The point is, I just want to tell people, and this is from a business perspective, it's nice to have multiple streams of income. If you're doing something great on social media, it doesn't hurt to be a coach too. You know what I mean? If you're a good coach, keep coaching people. Don't give up your coaching job, because you know what? You never know when one might dry up. You still want to have your coaching income. I always had coaching. I had my nutrition company, or I worked for someone like Blackman. I have RX Muscle. I'll do stuff on the side. I do phone consults with people. I try to keep my streams of income open because I have Species Nutrition, obviously, pays a salary. You got to have streams of income because you don't want, if one drying up, you don't want to have nothing else to fall back on. And it's important, especially when you get to a level where, you have houses and cars and you have bills every month to pay. It can be scary if you don't have that diversity in your portfolio. Yeah.
Well, you have multiple incomes, Dave, and you have 3 swamp drainers of that income.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
The kids.
I even have a snake. I sell snakes. I breed snakes.
Right.
That's another one.
The snakes.
Although I pretty much spend more on. I buy more snakes than I probably sell, but I make a few bucks on that. The whole thing is you want diversity, in what you do, so that you're not just beholden to one source of income, especially if you're doing this yourself. If you have a job for someone, that's a different story. I'm talking about people who are self-employed, people coach people, or people who have a social media presence and they make money from that. The problem with YouTube is it's very enticing, Chris, because if you become successful on it, you can start making so much money that you don't want to do anything else. You're like, you know what? I don't need to do anything else. I'll just make a video every day and I'm getting paid 15 grand a month. Why do I need to worry about anything else? I don't need to coach people anymore. I don't need to go out there and do guest posings. I don't need to go out there and train people at the gym. I'll just sit home and do a video every day. It becomes very comfortable. And you know what? I know people who make a lot of money on YouTube. I'm talking like 100 grand a month. And that's a scary proposal to potentially lose that. Now, these people who make the 100 grand a month have channels that are not going to be taken down because they're not the content is for kids or it's about animal, they show animals on there and stuff like that. So those are not controversial channels. But when you got a channel that's controversial, whether you're talking about anabolic steroids, because I know people have very popular channels out there that do that, or you're criticizing people, a gossip channel like Nick's was, those channels are, they kind of teeter on that gray area that, potentially they could be taken down. And because there is always someone who's mad at what you're saying or mad about what you're doing, and they're going to report you. So you got to be careful. And so you need to have the multiple streams of income. I can't stress that enough, because you will hit a point where you're going to need it. And you're going to say, man, that was the best advice I ever received from Dave. And, what a lot of people have told me, because I've been, giving that advice for years to have multiple streams of income. A lot of people said, you know what? It's the best advice you gave me, because when something dries up or something goes bad with one thing I'm doing, I always have something else to fall back on. And it's a good idea. Trust me.
Yeah. Good advice. Overall, great advice, as usual.
All right. Let's. There's not much to talk about, but what's the date? We got the do we have Pittsburgh coming up this weekend, or is that next weekend?
Yeah, 3 weeks Pittsburgh, 4 weeks New York Pro, 5 weeks Cal Pro. So 3, 4, and 5.
Wow. All right. So that's going to be exciting.
The big thing is everyone will be bridging into Pittsburgh.
But you know what? Ramy has committed to do Pittsburgh. Did you hear that?
I think you mentioned that on our last show.
I think I did a little video on it, but Ramy is committed to go to Pittsburgh. He has not committed to the Olympia. Matter of fact, we reached out to him. He's like, he's not sure about the Olympia, which is kind of interesting, I thought. But he's definitely going to Pittsburgh. I think he's going to Pittsburgh, to be honest with you, to see what the scuttlebutt is after he poses on stage. What do you think about that? Like what people are saying about him, where he seems to stand in the Olympia
all right, I can tell you
rankings, so to speak.
There's only 2 camps. There's the camp who say he's going to be the biggest on stage in Pittsburgh, which I'm sure he's training to be the biggest on stage.
I'm sure he will be, yeah.
And then he'll be the biggest on stage in Pittsburgh, and the critics will say, I see, you can't have a Mr. Olympia with no calves. Or the lats are still tied to me, or the left tricep is bothering me. So
Right. So it's basically a gamble. It's funny because Pittsburgh is like it's like promotion day. It's like halfway between the Olympia that just happened and the new Olympia coming up. It's kind of like the first time that people showcase, all right, here's my physique off season. This is how big I got. These are the improvements I made. What do you think? I mean, it worked for Derek Lunsford, man. It worked really well for him. Ramy didn't show up. Lunsford jumps on stage. Everyone's saying this guy should be the open. He moves up to open. They give him an invite, and places second at the Olympia. That was a huge, huge win for Lunsford last year. I think Ramy's hoping to get some momentum going into Pittsburgh. People looking at him saying, hey, this guy's a freak. He can still win the Olympia. And that's going to give him a lot of momentum going into the Olympia. But like you said, if people start critiquing him to death, his physique, that could work the opposite for him.
Well, that's what people do. I mean, that's what we do as a bodybuilding community, is we embrace Mr. Olympia, and then we'd love to tear him down.
Right, but I mean, if Ramy does look good and people really are like, holy mackerel, Ramy's made improvements, it'll definitely help him. And the fact that he missed last year, it's not going to hurt him to show up in Pittsburgh anyway, don't you think?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think from fan perspective, people want to see him there.
Yeah, and let's face it, right, you're right. People haven't seen Ramy. When was the last time they got to actually socially interact with Ramy?
Well, they
never.
They don't get to see him, off season too much in this. I don't think ever in the States, right? Do they ever get to see him posing in the States? Never.
I don't remember the last time I've seen Ramy guest pose in the States. Yeah, it's got to be a long time. So, all right. Well, will Ramy be better? Will Ramy get some momentum heading into the Olympia? We'll have to find out in a couple of weeks. What are you saying? 3 weeks, you said?
3 weeks, 20 days.
All right. 3 weeks to Pittsburgh, and then we got another week after that to the New York Pro. That should be super exciting. We'll start breaking down that show and handicapping who's going to be in there and what we think is going to happen over the next couple of weeks. This week was kind of like a little what I call reprieve week. we kind of had not that much action going on in the bodybuilding industry, but it's always great to see these bodybuilders guest posing. I'm glad that promoters are still hiring people to guest pose. because for a while we weren't seeing any guest posers because the shows were lasting so long that, because of all the divisions, that a lot of promoters were foregoing getting guest posers. And I think that's a mistake, because when you have upcoming bodybuilders and people who compete in these shows, a lot of them have never seen a real bodybuilder up close. It's great to have a big freaky guy like Nick Walker or Ramy or whoever you have, Keon Pearson, at these shows, because it adds a level of, it makes the show seem that much more important, I think. And so I hope that promoters continue to bring in big freaky guest posers like they have in the past. I think that it really adds to the enjoyability of being in the show and going to watch the show, I think.
Yeah, no, it adds a nice touch to a show. It's just that I think people, that's a relic of the past, as were magazines. Just, as a promoter, most promoters don't bring in a guest poster like they did 20 years ago. I mean,
yeah.
Look how many guest postings you did when you were an amateur. You get nothing. Because
I did, Chris, I did 30 guest postings one year. 30. I was on a plane every single weekend. It was crazy.
Sure.
But
tons. Coleman used to do tons. Jay used to ask Jay how many he did. Jay must have done 400 in the.
Oh, he definitely probably has the record for the most guest postings. He's still doing them. He's still doing guest appearances.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that that's something that promoters should really highly consider doing. And it was never done at the pro shows, but I'm talking about the amateur shows, because you know what? When I'm doing my first amateur show and I go to a show and, Gary Stridham was there in the past, I was like, not only was it fun to do the show because I was in the show, but I actually get to see like a big freaky bodybuilder that, you never get to see anywhere. It just made the show that much more enjoyable. And it didn't matter that the guy was going to be on stage for 5 minutes guest posing, probably out of shape. The fact that he was in the lobby signing pictures and you can go up to him and talk to him, it just, I don't know. It really raises the level of the show up much, much higher. So I highly encourage, if any promoters are listening to this, continue bringing in those guest postings. It gives these bodybuilders a source of income. It gives them the ability to connect with the fans better. And it makes the show that much better. And on that final note, we gave a lot of advice today, Chris. Multiple streams of income. We're talking about, marketing, and now guest posers. On that little bit of, informational note, we're going to wrap today up. Thanks, guys, for joining us, as we say every week, with Heavy Muscle Radio.
The truth hurts.
Sure does. We'll see you again next week.